Hello friends. Welcome to the Ben 10 What Ifs. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Ben 10 unlocked the cosmic Omnitrix and got Harem of Gwen, Kai and Julie. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Cosmic Resonance. The Sonoran Desert shimmered under the merciless afternoon sun. Heat waves distorting the horizon into a wavering mirage. Benjamin Kirby Tennyson crouched atop a weathered mesa, squinting through specialized plumber tech binoculars. Sweat trickled down his temple, catching briefly in the stubble along his jawline before continuing its descent. At 21, he'd grown into his lanky teenage frame, shoulders broader, features sharper, eyes holding the cool-iet confidence of someone who'd saved the universe more times than most people had taken weekend trips. "You sure about these coordinates, Rook?" Ben adjusted the binoculars, focusing on a cluster of unusual rock formations 2 miles east. "I'm seeing a whole lot of nothing out here." The communicator on his wrist crackled. "The energy signature is unmistakable, Ben dude. Unlike anything in the plumber database." Rook's formal speech patterns had relaxed somewhat over their years as partners, though his grammar remained impeccable even when adopting Earth slang. Ben wiped his brow with the back of his hand. The Omnitrix, sleeker than its previous iterations but no less powerful, gleamed against his tanned skin. 5 years had passed since he'd received this version, yet it still occasioned LLY surprised him with unexplained glitches and updates. "Alright, I'm moving in closer." Ben rose from his position, rolling his shoulders to release the tension from staying motionless. "Whatever's causing these readings, it's not showing itself from up here." He skidded down the rocky slope with practiced ease, each step deliberate despite his seemingly casual descent. Years of transforming into different alien bodies had given him exceptional awareness of his own human form, its limitations and capabilities alike. He'd supplemented this natural agility with actual training, something his teenage self would have scoffed at. The desert around him hummed with afternoon heat and the subtle buzz of insects seeking shade. Ben had learned to pay attention to these environmental cues. The sudden absence of sound often preceded danger more reliably than any tech alert. Today, however, the desert's symphony continued uninterrupted as he approached the anomalous readings. Until it didn't. Ben froze mid-stride. The cicadas had fallen silent. The whisper of wind through cacti ceased. Even the heat seemed to pause, suspended in the air like a held breath. The Omnitrix flared without warning, its green glow intensifying to emerald brilliance. Ben instinctively raised his arm as unfamiliar symbols scrolled across the device's display, sharp, angular patterns he'd never seen before. "Rook, something's happening with the Omnitrix." He kept his voice low, eyes scanning the terrain. New symbols, definitely not standard Galvan script. Only static answered him. Rook, do you copy?" Ben tapped the communicator, then sighed. "Great. Calms down. Weird Omnitrix activity, creepy desert silence. Just how I wanted to spend my Saturday." A glint of movement caught his eye, somethy-ing metallic reflecting sunlight from behind a distant rock formation. Ben dropped into a defensive crouch, weighing his options. Transform now and potentially trigger whatever was causing the Omnitrix's strange behavior. Or investigate human first and maintain the element of surprise. The decision was made for him when a figure emerged from behind the rocks. Silhouetted against the harsh sunlight, the person moved with the deliberate grace of a trained field operative. Ben tensed, then relaxed slightly as recognition dawned. "Kai," he called, straightening from his crouch. Kai Green halted mid-stride, her hand immediately dropping to the weapon holstered at her hip. When she recognized Ben, her posture loosened marginally, though the wariness never fully left her eyes. She wore practical field gear, cargo pants, fitted moisture-wicking shirt, and a utility vest laden with archaeological tools and what Ben suspected were less academic implements. "Tennyson." Her voice carried easily across the desert air, neither friendly nor hostile, simply acknowledging. "Should have known you'd show up." Ben approached with a casual gait that belied his alertness. "Funny, I was about to say the same thing about you." They hadn't seen each other in nearly 2 years, not since that business with the Chronosopian artifacts in Prague. Kai had grown her hair longer, now woven into a complex braid that hung over one shoulder. New scars marked her forearms, thin, precise lines that spoke of encounters with something bearing claws or blades. Let me guess, Ben continued when she didn't immediately speak. You're here about the energy readings. Kai arched an eyebrow. The plumbers are monitoring this. Interesting. She pulled a device from her vest pocket, something that resembled a tab. But with technology clearly beyond Earth origin. I'm tracking unusual temporal disturbances centered approximately half a kilometer east. My Foundation detected them 3 days ago. Foundation. Ben fell into step beside her as she began walking again. Last I heard, you were working independently. Things changed, Tennyson. Her eyes remained focused on the terrain ahead. The Horizon Foe. Foundation specializes in alien artifacts and dimensional anomalies. We've been operational for 18 months. Ben processed this information, noting what she wasn't saying. Kai had always been selective with details. Even back when they were teenagers with an awkward almost something between them. That caution had only sharpened with adulthood. And you just happened to be the one they sent to investigate? Ben asked, unable to keep a hint of skepticism from his voice. Kai shot him a sidelong glance, the ghost of a smile touching her lips. I volunteered. Not many archaeologists have personal experience with Omnitrix bearers and multidimensional incidents. Before Ben could respond, the Omnitrix pulsed again, more insistently. The strange symbols reappeared, accompanied by a high-pitched tone Ben had never heard from the device before. That's new, he muttered, studying the display. Kai stepped closer, eyes narrowing as she examined the symbols. Those look like chronosepian quantum markers, but different. More complex. You can read this. Ben looked up in surprise. Not exactly, but I've been studying similar script on artifacts we've recovered. She tapped something into her device. The pattern suggests temporal coordinates, but with additional dimensional variables. The ground beneath them trembled, a subtle vibration that gradually intensified. Ben widened his stance to maintain balance as Kai quickly stowed her equipment. I'm guessing that's not a regular desert earthquake, Ben said, eyes scanning their surroundings. Definitely not. Kai pointed toward what appeared to be a heat mirage ahead of them. Look at the air distortion patterns. Ben focused on the shimmering air. Unlike normal heat waves, these distortions moved with purpose, contracting and expanding in rhythmic pulses. The colors at the edges shifted beyond the visible spectrum, bending light in ways that made his eyes water. We should back up, he suggested, just as the Omnitrix emitted a warning beep. No, Kai countered, already moving forward. This is exactly what I came to study. The resonance pattern matches ancient descriptions of cosmic fissures. Cosmic what now? Ben hurried after her, torn between caution and curiosity. The air crackled with electricity, raising the hair on Ben's arms. The distortion expanded suddenly, tearing open like fabric ripping along a seam. Where empty desert had been moments before, a swirling vortex of energy now hovered 3 feet above the ground, its center a bottomless void surrounded by coruscating rings of blue-violet light. Ben instinctively positioned himself between Kai and the phenomenon. That definitely wasn't in the plumber briefing. The vortex pulsed, sending a shockwave of energy outward. Ben braced for impact, but instead of knocking them back, the wave passed through them with a sensation like ice water flowing through his veins. The Omnitrix reacted violently, its green glow flaring to blinding intensity as the faceplate suddenly rotated without Ben's command. Ben. Kai's voice sounded distant despite her standing right beside him. Your watch. It's. The Omnitrix projected a holographic display unlike anything Ben had seen before, a 3-dimensional star map that expanded outward, filling the air around them with constellations and nebulae from galaxies Ben didn't recognize. At the center, a pulsing symbol slowly rotated, a circular design with intricate geometric patterns surrounding a stylized hourglass. What is this? Ben whispered, mesmerized by the display. It looks like coordinates, Kai replied, equally transfixed. A map to something. The vortex suddenly contracted, then expanded with explosive force. Ben reacted instinctively, diving toward Kai and wrapping his arms around her as they tumbled to the ground. A blinding flash engulfed the desert as something erupted from the dimensional tear, a metallic object that shot skyward before arcing back down, CTing the sand 20 yards away with enough force to create a small crater. Silence descended once more as the vortex collapsed in on itself, shrinking to a pinpoint before winking out of existence. Ben helped Kai to her feet, his eyes never leaving the impact site. "You okay?" She nodded, brushing sand from her clothes. "What was that? What came through?" "Only one way to find out." Ben approached the crater cautiously, Kai close behind. Steam rose from the depression in the sand, the heat having partially vitrified the desert floor into crude glass. At the center lay an object approximately the size of a softball, a metallic sphere with the same geometric patterns they'd seen in the holographic display. It pulsed with a soft blue-violet light, seemingly undamaged despite its violent arrival. "Don't touch it," Kai warned, pulling out a scanner from her vest. "Radiation levels are minimal, but there's an energy signature I've never seen before." Ben knelt at the crater's edge, studying the sphere. The Omnitrix continued to display unusual symbols, though its erratic behavior had subsided. "Whatever it is, the Omnitrix is responding to it." Kai's scanner beeped. "It's calling to something." She looked up at Ben with sudden understanding. "It's calling to the Omnitrix." As if confirming her words, the sphere rose slowly from the crater, hovering at eye level. Its surface shifted, sections rotating and realigning like a complex puzzle solving itself. With each movement, the Omnitrix responded with corresponding beeps and symbol changes. "I think they're communicating," Ben murmured, fascinated despite the potential danger. The sphere suddenly accelerated toward Ben with lightning speed. He threw up his arm instinctively, the Omnitrix directly in the sphere's path. Instead of impact, the sphere halted a millimeter from the device. Light erupted from both objects, connecting them with a beam of energy that forced Ben to his knees. "Ben!" Kai shouted, reaching for him. "Stay back," he managed through gritted teeth. The energy coursing through him wasn't painful exactly, but overwhelming, like trying to contain an ocean within a teacup. Information flood ed his consciousness. Images of worlds he'd never seen, beings beyond description, knowledge so vast it threatened to drown his sense of self. The Omnitrix's faceplate suddenly detached, floating ink. He's above his wrist while still connected by tendrils of light. The sphere disassembled itself, components orbiting the Omnitrix core like electrons around a nucleus. With precision that suggested intelligence, the pieces began integrating with the floating faceplate, expanding, reconfiguring, evolving. Ben watched in awe as a new device took shape around his wrist, larger than the original Omnitrix. With an elaborate interface of crystal and an unknown alloy. The hourglass symbol remained, but now surrounded by concentric rings of symbols that shifted and rotated in patterns too complex to follow. The light faded gradually, leaving Ben kneeling in the sand with the transformed device on his wrist. It felt heavier, yet somehow more balanced, as if it had been specifically calibrated for his body. "Ben." Kai approached cautiously. "What just happened?" He rose slowly, examining the new Omnitrix with a mixture of wonder and apprehension. "I think I just got an upgrade." Before Kai could respond, the ground shook violently. In the distance, where the vortex had been, the air began to tear again, but differently this time. Instead of the organized energy pattern from before, this distortion looked ragged, unstable. Flashes of landscapes from other worlds flickered within the tear, alien skies, impossible structures, glimpses of beings in mid-motion. "That doesn't look like a controlled experiment," Ben noted grimly. "The initial breach must have weakened the dimensional boundary." Kai was already consulting her scanner. "This is a cascade failure." From within the growing tear, something moved, a writhing mass of darkness that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. As it pushed through into their reality, Ben felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. The creature that emerged bore a vague resemblance to a Vulpimancer, but twisted and wrong, its body partially transparent, revealing organs that pulsed with void-like emptiness rather than biological matter. "That's not in any plumber database I've memorized," Ben said, positioning himself in front of Kai. The corrupted Vulpimancer threw back its head and emitted a sound that hurt to hear, not just loud but fundamentally wrong. Like reality itself objecting to the creature's existence. "I'm thinking this calls for an expert." Ben activated the new Omnitrix, surprised by how responsive it felt, almost anticipating his intent. The holographic display that appeared above it showed not only his familiar transformations but dozens of new silhouettes, organized in rotating rings. "Whoa, expanded playlist," he murmured. quickly selecting a familiar form. The transformation sequence felt different, smoother, faster, more complete. In seconds, Ben had become Diamond Head, but with subtle differences. Additional crystalline growths along his shoulders and forearms, and faint luminescent patterns beneath his surface that pulsed with the same blue-violet energy as the sphere. This is new. His voice resonated with additional harmonics, as if speaking across multiple frequencies simultaneously. He examined his crystalline hands, noting enhanced refraction patterns within. The corrupted Vulpimancer charged, moving with unnatural speed. Diamond Head raised his hands instinctively, intending to create his standard crystal barrier. What manifested instead was a prismatic wall of energy-infused crystals that erupted from the ground with explosive force, catching the creature mid-leap and sending it tumbling backward. Okay. Definitely upgraded, Diamond Head noted with satisfaction. Kai had taken cover behind a boulder, her weapon drawn, some kind of energy pistol Ben didn't recognize. The creature's physiology is unstable, she called. It's not fully anchored to our dimensional plane. The Vulpimancer recovered quickly, circling Diamond Head with predatory focus. Where its paws touched the ground, the sand blackened and hardened into glass-like material. It lunged again, this time feinting left before darting right with impossible agility. Diamond Head anticipated the move, however, his enhanced perception tracking subtle distortions in the air that telegraphed the creature's intent. He sidestepped and thrust out his palm, generating a barrage of crystal shards that struck with precision. Instead of merely penetrating the creature's hide, the crystals pulsed upon impact, seeming to stabilize the corrupted flesh they touched. The Vulpimancer howled in what sounded like pain, or perhaps rage, as portions of its body became more solid, more anchored to reality. It thrashed violently, trying to dislodge the embedded crystals. It's working, Kai called, emerging from cover to approach the dimensional tear, scanner in hand. The crystalline matrix is forcing quantum stability. Diamond Head pressed his advantage, closing the distance to the creature and placing both hands directly on its writhing form. He concentrated, instinctively understanding how to modulate his energy output through the crystals. Light flowed from his palms into the corrupted Vulpimancer, spreading throughout its body in web-like patterns. The creature's struggles weakened as its form solidified, becoming less void-like and more substantial. Finally, it collapsed to the sand, its body now resembling a normal Vulpimancer, though unconscious and still bearing unusual markings. That was different, Diamond Head observed, stepping back from the pacified creature. Ben, Kai's urgent voice drew his attention. The tear is expanding exponentially. He turned to see the dimensional rift had indeed grown, now spanning nearly 30 feet across. Landscapes continued to flicker within it, cycling faster now, as if searching for something. The edges crackled with unstable energy that lashed out in lightning-like tendrils. Any ideas how to close an interdimensional tear? Diamond Head asked, approaching the phenomenon cautiously. Kai shook her head, frustration evident. Theoretical models suggest a counterresonance frequency could collapse it, but generating enough energy. She was interrupted as 3 more corrupted creatures emerged from the rift, these resembling necrophrygians, but with the same void-like distortions as the Vulpimancer. They moved with unnatural synchronization, spreading out to surround Diamond Head and Kai. Keep scanning the tear, Diamond Head instructed, positioning himself to protect Kai. I'll handle our guests. The corrupted necrophrygians attacked simultaneously, their usual intangibility powers enhanced by their partial existence outside normal space-time. Diamond Head found his crystals passing through their forms ineffectively when they phased. Time to try something new, he muttered, touching the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. The transformation felt instantaneous, barely a flash of light before Ben found himself in a form he'd never used before. His body was humanoid but composed of what appeared to be condensed cosmic energy. Swirling galaxies and nebulae visible within his semi-transparent blue-violet form. Knowledge flooded his consciousness. This alien was called a celestial sapien, but unlike the ones he'd encountered before. This variant seemed different, more focused. Cosmic, he named himself instinctively, his voice echoing as if spoken across vast distances. The corrupted necrophrygians halted their advance, seemingly uncertain about this new threat. Cosmic raised a hand experimentally, feeling immense power flowing through him but with surprising control. When he willed it, a pulse of energy expanded outward, catching the nearest corrupted necrophrygian and instantly reverting it to normal form. Whoa, Cosmic breathed, looking at his hands in amazement. That was easy. Kai stared at him with wide eyes. Ben, what is that form? Some kind of celestial sapien variant, he replied, moving toward the second corrupted creature. But without the multiple personalities debating every action. With swift gestures, Cosmic neutralized the remaining corrupted necrophrygians, restoring them to their natural state. Each lay unconscious but stable, their connection to the void severed. The rift, Kai reminded him urgently, pointing to the tear which now pulsed with increasing instability. Cosmic approached the dimensional opening, feeling drawn to it in a way he couldn't explain. Within this form, he could perceive layers of reality folding and unfolding through the tear, the multiverse revealed in all its infinite complexity. More importantly, he could see the instability, the unraveling fabric that threatened to spread beyond this isolated desert location. I think I can close it, he said, raising both hands toward the rift. Cosmic concentrated, drawing on no edge that seemed intrinsic to this form. He began weaving energy between his fingers, creating an intricate pattern that mirrored the tear's quantum signature but inverted. As he worked, the rift responded, edges stabilizing. Random energy discharges diminishing. Sweat would have beaded on his brow had this form been capable of it. Despite the celestial sapien's immense power, manipulating diamonds' ional boundaries required incredible precision. One miscalculation could expand the tear exponentially or collapse it too quickly, potentially creating a devastating shockwave. Almost, he whispered, fingers trembling as he completed the complex energy weave. With a final, decisive gesture, Cosmic thrust the pattern into the center of the rift. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the tear began to contract, slowly at first. Then with increasing speed, the edges knitted together like a wound healing in accelerated time, dimensional energies flowing back to their proper places. The rift's yielded with a thunderclap of displaced air, sending Cosmic staggering backward. He dropped to one knee, the immense expenditure of energy leaving him momentarily drained despite his powerful form. The Omnitrix timed out with a familiar beep, energy spiraling around Ben as he reverted to human form. He remained kneeling in the sand, breathing heavily, the new Omnitrix on his wrist pulsing with subdued light. Kai rushed to his side, concern evident in her expression. Ben, are you all right? He nodded, still catching his breath. Yeah. That was intense. He looked up at her with a hint of his old smirk. So, come here often. She rolled her eyes but offered him a hand up, which he accepted gratefully. You turned into a celestial sapien and all you can manage is a bad pickup line. It's part of my charm, Ben replied, dusting sand from his clothes. Speaking of which, what exactly happened here? And what is this? He gestured to the transformed Omnitrix. Kai studied the device with evident fascination. If I had to guess based on ancient texts, you're wearing what my people's legends call the Cosmic Omnitrix. Cosmic Omnitrix, Ben repeated, examining the device with new interest. That's actually a pretty cool name. But what does it do? Besides the obvious upgrades to my existing aliens. According to legend, it was created by Azimuth as a theoretical prohe court, a device that could access transformations from across the multiverse, not just our universe. Kai gestured to the unconscious aliens nearby. And apparently, it can purify corrupted beings. Ben flexed his wrist, feeling the comfortable weight of the Cosmic Omnitrix. Any idea why it chose now to appear? Or why it chose me specifically? The timing can't be coincidence, Kai replied, glancing at her scanner. These dimensional disturbances have been increasing across the globe for months. My foundation has been tracking them, but they've never resulted in physical manifestations until today. So something's happening to the walls between dimensions, Ben summarized, and somehow this upgraded Omnitrix is connected. Kai nodded, her expression serious. We should contain these creatures and get them proper treatment. Then I need to report to my foundation, and you should probably contact the plumbers. Ben activated his communicator, relieved to find it working again. Rook, do you copy? We've got a situation here. Multiple unconscious aliens, formerly corrupted by some kind of dimensional energy. Need containment and transport. Ben dude. Rook's voice came through clearly, tinged with relief. We lost your signal for 17 minutes and 23 seconds. Plumber sensors detected a massive energy surge at your location. Reinforcements are already en route. Good. We'll need specialized containment. These guys have been through some kind of interdimensional corruption. Ben paused, considering how to explain the next part. Also, the Omnitrix has evolved. Evolved. Rook's voice conveyed his surprise even through the communicator. In what manner? It's complicated. I'll explain when you get here. Ben ended the transmission and turned to find Kai already examining the unconscious aliens with her scanner. Their molecular structure is stabilizing, she reported, but there are residual energy signatures unlike anything I've documented before. Ben approached the former Vulpimancer cautiously, noting how its previously void-like patches had solidified into dark, almost metallic areas on its hide. What do you think corrupted them? Kai shook her head, her braids swinging with the movement. Not what? Who? These creatures were weaponized, Ben. Something or someone deliberately exposed them to void energy and sent them through as advanced scouts. A chill ran down Ben's spine despite the desert heat. You think there's an intelligence behind these rifts? I know there is, Kai replied grimly. The patterns are too precise, too targeted. Someone is testing the boundaries between dimensions, looking for weaknesses. Ben looked down at the cosmic Omnitrix, its unfamiliar weight a reminder of how quickly everything had changed. And somehow, this appeared just when we needed it. Perhaps it's been waiting for the right moment, Kai suggested, standing to face him. The legends say the cosmic Omnitrix would emerge when the multiverse faced its greatest threat. Quote, the sound of approaching plumber ships drew their attention skyward. 3 sleek vessels descended toward their position, kicking up swirls of sand as they landed. We should continue this conversation somewhere more private, Kai said, already moving toward her own vehicle partially hidden among the rocks. There's a lot more I need to tell you about what my foundation has discovered. Ben caught her arm gently, stopping her retreat. Kai, wait, it's been 2 years. You show up exactly when this cosmic weirdness happens, with a foundation I've never heard of. Talking about ancient legends that just happen to match what we experienced today. He searched her face, looking for answers. What aren't you telling me? Something flickered in her eyes, hesitation, perhaps, or internal debate. Finally, she sighed. I'm telling you everything I can right now, Ben. But you're right, there's more. She glanced at the approaching plumber officers. Not here, not now. Meet me tonight, at the observatory on Mount Graham. 8 o'clock. Before Ben could press further, she slipped from his grasp and jogged toward her hidden vehicle. He watched her go, conflicting emotions stirring within him. Frustration at her cryptic behavior, yet undeniable interest in the mystery she presented. Some things hadn't changed since they were kids. Rook approached from the landed plumber ship, his eyes immediately drawn to the transformed Omnitrix. Ben dude, that is definitely not the same Omnitrix you were wearing this morning. Ben grinned, holding up his wrist to display the device. Meet the cosmic Omnitrix, apparently. Long story involving dimensional tears, corrupted aliens, and me turning into some kind of focused celestial sapien. Rook's expression shifted from surprise to deep concern. A celestial sapien. Ben, you know how dangerous that transformation can be. This was different, Ben explained as they walked toward the containment team. No debating personalities, just pure cosmic power with actual control. It felt right. Fascinating, Rook murmured, examining the device without touching it. And the dimensional tear. Closed, for now. Ben watched as plumber officers secured the unconscious aliens in specialized containment units. But according to Kai, it's not an isolated incident. Kai Green was here. Rook's surprise was evident. That is quite the coincidence. Yeah, Ben agreed, his gaze drifting to the horizon where Kai's vehicle had disappeared. Quite the coincidence. The plumber headquarters Benia. Th. Bellwood had expanded significantly in recent years, now encompassing several subterranean levels equipped with state-of-the-art technology from across the galaxy. Ben sat in the medical bay, subja. CTED to his third scan in the past hour as specialists examined both him and the cosmic Omnitrix. As far as we can determine, the device is stable and fully integrated with your biometric signature, drive. Bordis, the lead plumber medical officer, reported. The Alphablosion adjusted his glasses as he reviewed the results. However, Its energy signature contains elements we cannot identify. Max Tennyson entered the room. His weathered face set in familiar lines of concern. Despite his official, semi-retirement, Ben's grandfather remained deeply involved in plumber operations, especially anything concerning his grandson. "How are you feeling, Ben?" Max asked, placing a reassuring hand on Ben's shoulder. "Like I just leveled up in the most literal way possible," Ben replied with a half-smile. "Seriously, Grandpa, I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. This new Omnitrix feels, I don't know, more in sync with me somehow." Max studied the device with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen too many alien artifacts to be easily impressed. Azimuth never mentioned a cosmic Omnitrix in any of our discussions. According to Kai, it was a theoretical project, Ben explained, sliding off the examination table. Maybe he never expected it to actually manifest. Speaking of Kai, Max said carefully, her sudden appearance is interesting timing. Ben shrugged, though he'd been thinking the same thing. She said she works for some organization called the Horizon Foundation now. Tracking dimensional anomalies. The Horizon Foundation, Max repeated, exchanging a significant look with Rook, who had just entered the room. "We've had them on our radar for about a year. Very secretive, very well funded. They've been acquiring alien artifacts and recruiting experts in interdimensional physics. And apparently archaeologists specializing in alien civilizations," Ben added, thinking of Kai. Rook approached with a data pad. "The corrupted aliens are stabilized and recovering in containment. Initial analysis confirms they were exposed to what our scientists are calling void energy, essentially, the negative space between dimensions." "Any idea how they got corrupted in the first place?" Ben asked. "Not yet," Rook admitted, "but the energy signatures match several unexplained incidents across 3 sectors in the past month." Ben absorbed this information, pieces of a larger puzzle slowly connecting in his mind. "So whatever happened today, it's part of something bigger. Which brings us to your next assignment," Max said, his tone shifting to the professional cadence he used for mission briefings. "We need to understand what this cosmic Omnitrix is capable of, and how it relates to these dimensional incursions." Ben flexed his wrist, the device catching the light. "I'm guessing that means a training session with the new transformations." "Precisely," Rook confirmed. "The underwater training facility has been prepared with enhanced monitoring systems. We should be able to safely test your new capabilities there." Ben nodded, though his thoughts drifted to Kai's invitation. 8 o'clock at Mount Graham Observatory. "I'll need to be finished by 7. Max raised an eyebrow. "Hot date. Information exchange," Ben corrected, feeling a flush creep up his neck despite himself. Kai mentioned having additional data about these dimensional anomalies. "The Horizon Foundation has been reluctant to share information with the plumbers," Rook noted with slight disapproval. "All the more reason to take the meeting," Max countered pragmatically. "Just be careful, Ben. There's a lot we don't know about their agenda." Ben saluted with mock formality. "Caution is my middle name. It's Kirby, actually," Rook pointed out helpfully. "It's an expression, Rook," Ben sighed. Heading for the door. "Come on. Let's see what this cosmic upgrade can really do." The underwater training facility resembled a massive aquarium, its reinforced walls designed to contain even the most destructive alien transformations. Ben stood on the central platform, the cosmic Omnitrix gleaming on his wrist as technicians made final adjustments to the monitoring systems. "We're ready when you are, Ben," Rook's voice came through the communication system. "Start with a familiar transformation to establish baseline comparisons." Ben nodded, activating the Omnitrix. The holographic interface appeared, far more elaborate than before, with rotating rings of alien silhouettes organized in what appeared to be dimensional classifications. "Okay, let's try an old favorite," Ben murmured. Selecting Homungosaur, the transformation sequence felt smoother, more efficient. Energy spiraled around him, reshaping his molecular structure with precision that left no disorientation afterward. When it completed, Ben found himself in a familiar yet enhanced form, Homungosaur's massive reptilian body, but with armored plates that shifted with iridescent patterns and a more upright, balanced posture. "Whoa," he rumbled, examining his scaled arms. "Definitely upgraded. Fascinating," Rook observed from the control room. "Your Vaxosaurian form shows a 22% Increase in muscle density and the addition of a biometallic alloy integrated with your dermal layers. Homungosaur tested his strength against a reinforced training dummy, easily shattering it with a single punch. The strength boost is nice, but there's something else. He concentrated, and the armored plates along his back shifted, extending outward into wing-like projections. That's definitely new. Flight capability in a homungosaur. Rook sounded genuinely shocked. That would be evolutionary impossible for standard Vaxosaurians. Homungosaur experimentally flapped the appendages, generating enough lift to hover several feet above the platform. Not flying exactly, more like gliding with a boost. For the next hour, Ben cycled through familiar transformations, discovering enhanced abilities in each. Heat Blast could now generate temperatures hot enough to melt through reinforced titanite. XLR-8 moved so fast he created afterimages that persisted for seconds. Diamond Head could now control the crystalline structures he created with unprecedented precision, animating them like remote extensions of himself. These upgrades are consistent with theoretical evolutionary advancements. Rook noted after Ben had tested his 10th transformation. As if the cosmic Omnitrix is accessing peak specimens from each species. Ben reverted to human form, catching his breath. What about the new aliens? I counted at least 30 I've never seen before in the selection interface. Proceed with caution, Rook advised. Select one that appears least volatile for initial testing. Ben activated the holographic display again, studying the unfamiliar silhouettes. He selected one that appeared humanoid with flowing, wave-like appendages. The transformation enveloped him in blue-violet light. When it cleared, Ben found himself in a form composed of what appeared to be liquid light, his body semi-transparent with swirling patterns of luminescence flowing through him. Null. DGE of this form came intuitively, a Luminavian from a dimension where light had evolved consciousness. Luminous, he named himself, his voice resonating with harmonic overtones. Remarkable, Rook breathed through the communication system. Your molecular structure appears to exist partially as energy rather than matter. Luminous raised a hand, watching as it shifted between solid and light forms at his will. With concentration, he projected a beam of focused energy that carved a precise pattern into the reinforced wall opposite him. I can modulate the wavelength, Luminous observed, shifting the beam through the visible spectrum and beyond. When he reached ultraviolet frequencies, previously invisible markings on the training room walls became apparent, plumber security protocols and emergency systems. I can see things that are hidden, he reported, turning slowly to observe the room through new perceptions. Energy signatures, radiation patterns, even temporal distortions. Temporal distortions? Rook questioned sharply. Where? Luminous pointed to a corner of the facility where the air seemed to shimmer slightly, imperceptible to normal vision but clearly visible to his light-sensitive form. There. It's subtle, but there's a microscopic tear in space-time. Probably residual from a teleporter malfunction. Rook's voice held barely contained excitement. Ben, this could be invaluable for tracking the dimensional anomalies. Luminous approached the distortion cautiously. As he drew closer, he could perceive more details. The tear was old, its edges healed naturally over time. But it had left a scar in reality's fabric. Similar to, yet different from, what he had witnessed in the desert. The cosmic Omnitrix suddenly pulsed on his chest, the symbol projectin. A beam of light that connected with the distortion. Information flowed between them, data streaming in both directions. Luminous felt the knowledge integrate with his consciousness. Coordinates, frequencies, resonance patterns. Ben, Rook's concerned voice broke through his concentration. Your energy signature is fluctuating. Luminous stepped back, the connection breaking. The Omnitrix just downloaded information from the distortion, like it was reading its quantum signature. Can you access this information? Rook asked. I think so, Luminous replied, focusing inward. It's like a map, showing similar distortions across the planet, varying in size and intensity. The cosmic Omnitrix beeped, and Luminous reverted to human form. Ben stumbled slightly, the transition from energy being to human momentarily disorienting. That was intense, he muttered, steadying himself against a training console. Rook entered the chamber, data pad in hand. The Omnitrix appears to be cataloging dimensional anomalies. Perhaps that is part of its purpose. Ben nodded slowly, processing the implications. It's not just giving me new powers, it's equipping me to deal with whatever's causing these breaches. Which brings us back to the question of timing, Rook noted. Why now? What changed to necessitate the emergence of the cosmic Omnitrix? Ben checked the time. Nearly 6:30. Maybe Kai has some answers. I should get ready for that meeting. Rook studied his friend with poorly concealed concern. Be careful, Ben dude. Ms. Green may have her own agenda in all this. Don't worry, Ben assured him with a confident smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. If there's one thing I'm good at, it's improvising. Mount Graham Observatory perched atop the highest peak in southern Arizona, its massive telescope dome gleaming silver in the light of the rising moon. Ben parked his vehicle, a sleek, black coupe with subtle plumber modifications, in the nearly empty lot. At this hour, the facility was closed to the public, with only research staff permitted access. Ben approached the main entrance, noting the advanced security system, ostensibly to protect the expensive astronomical equipment. But with enhancements that suggested more sensitive research occurred here than simple stargazing. The cosmic Omnitrix pulsed gently on his wrist, as if sensing something significant nearby. Before he could reach for the intercom, the door slid open. Kai stood in the entrance, dressed in dark tactical pants and a fitted jacket bearing a subtle insignia, a horizon line with a stylized H rising from it. You're punctual, she observed with faint surprise. That's new. Ben shrugged, stepping inside as she moved aside. I've grown up a little since high school. So I see, Kai replied, her eyes briefly taking in his appearance, the broader shoulders, the more defined jawline, the confident posture that had replaced his teenage slouch. She turned abruptly, leading him through the facility. This way, we're using the private research lab. Ben followed, noting the security cameras tracking their movement and the occasional glimpse of guards who appear. Far more military than typical security personnel. Your foundation has some serious influence to get private access to a government facility. The Horizon Foundation has partnerships with various research institutions. Kai explained neutrally. Mutual benefits. They entered an elevator that required both retinal and voice confirmation from Kai before descending. Ben leaned against the wall, studying her profile as she stared straight ahead. So, are we going to talk about Prague? He asked casually. Kai's posture stiffened slightly, though her expression remained impassive. That was 2 years ago, Ben. Where you kissed me, then disappeared for 24 months without a word, he continued. Not even a text message saying, hey, still alive, just busy with my secret foundation studying dimensional anomalies. The elevator slowed to a stop, saving Kai from responding as the doors opened to reveal a laboratory far more advanced than anything the public observatory would house. Holographic displays showed star charts and energy readings, while specialized equipment hummed with activity along the walls. A familiar figure stood at the central console, her back to them. As she manipulated data on a floating display, red hair was pulled into a practical ponytail, and even from behind, her focused posture was unmistakable. Gwen. Ben stopped short, surprise evident in his voice. Gwen Tennyson turned, a small smile lifting the corners of her mouth. Hello, Ben. Took you long enough to get involved. Ben looked between Gwen and Kai in confusion. You two are working together. Since when? 6 months. Gwen replied, approaching to examine the cosmic Omnitrix with obvious interest. After I completed my interdimensional studies with Grandma Verdona. And you didn't think to mention this to me. Ben tried to keep the hurt from his voice. Gwen's expression softened slightly. It was classified, Ben. Even Grandpa Max only knows portions of what we've been researching. Ben absorbed this, pieces clicking into place. So the Horizon Foundation recruited both of you. The dimensional expert and the alien artifact specialist. Among others, Kai confirmed, activating a holographic display that expanded to fill the center of the room. But now that you've bonded with the cosmic Omnitrix, it's time for full disclosure. The hologram showed a map of the Earth, dotted with points of light in various colors. Red points appeared most numerous, clustered in specific regions. For the past 18 months, we've been tracking increasingly frequent dimensional anomalies, Gwen explained, gesturing to the red markers. At first, they were minor, small tears that self-healed within minutes. But 3 months ago, the pattern changed. She manipulated the display, and the timeline accelerated, showing a dramatic increase in both frequency and intensity of the anomalies. The tears began lasting longer, growing larger, and most concerning, showing signs of deliberate manipulation. Kai continued, highlighting several locations where the anomalies formed precise geometric patterns. Someone's doing this intentionally, Ben concluded, studying the patterns. Creating breaches between dimensions. Yes, Gwen confirmed grimly. And 2 weeks ago, we detected the first incursion, a probe of some kind that emerged from a tear in the Arctic before we could intercept it. The display showed grainy footage of a metallic sphere similar to the one Ben had encountered, but darker, with red energy pulses rather than blue-violet. It scanned our reality for approximately 47 seconds before returning through the tear, Kai explained. 3 days later, we detected the energy signature that led us to the Sonoran Desert. Ben's mind raced with implications. You knew the cosmic Omnitrix would be there. We hoped, Gwen corrected. Ancient texts described a counterbalance to dimensional manipulation, a device that could access the multiverse without damaging the barriers between realities. According to legend, Kai added, the cosmic Omnitrix was hidden by Azimuth himself, placed in a pocket dimension that would only open when the multiverse faced a specific threat. Quote, Ben looked down at the device on his wrist with new appreciation and concern. So this thing appeared because something bad enough is happening to trigger whatever safeguards Azimuth put in place. Exactly, Gwen confirmed. And based on the corrupted aliens you encountered, we believe the threat is actively sending scouts through these breaches. Ben paced the laboratory, processing the information. Why didn't you bring the plumbers into this from the beginning? Or at least tell me. Kai and Gwen exchanged looks before Gwen answered. The Foundation has certain benefactors who prefer discretion. They believe conventional authorities might escalate the situation or interfere with delicate interdimensional politics. Politics. Ben stopped pacing to stare at her. We're talking about corrupted aliens and reality tears, and you're worried about politics. The multiverse has rules, Ben, Gwen replied with the patience of someone explaining complex concepts to a student. Diplomatic relationships between dimensions that have existed for millennia, involving the plumbers, or worse, Earth governments, could destabilize those relationships. Ben crossed his arms, unconvinced. So instead, this foundation operates in secret, recruiting experts like you two, monitoring existential threats without oversight. Not without oversight, Kai countered sharply. Just different oversight. The Foundation answers to the interdimensional Concordat, a council representing 17 stable dimensional planes with established peaceful relations. The name triggered a memory from Ben's earlier transformation. The cosmic Omnitrix recognized that name when I turned into Luminous. It's connected to this Concordat somehow. Gwen's eyes widened with interest. You've already accessed Illuminavian form. Impressive. Their dimension is one of the oldest in the Concordat. Focus, please, Ben said, gesturing to the holographic display. What's causing these breaches, and what do we do about them? Kai manipulated the display again, zooming in on an area of darkness between dimensional planes, a void-like space that seemed to absorb the light around it. We call it the Void Horizon, she explained, her voice taking on a more formal, academic tone. A boundary space between dimensional planes that shouldn't be accessible to any being. Except natural dimension walkers like Chronosapiens or Professor Paradox. Something is using the Void Horizon as a staging area, Gwen continued. Sending corrupted creatures through as scouts, testing defenses, analyzing our reality. Quote, for what purpose? Ben asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Invasion, Kai stated simply. Or possibly assimilation. The void corruption, we've observed appears designed to remake other beings in the image of whatever dwells within the Void Horizon. The cosmic Omnitrix pulsed on Ben's wrist, projecting its own holographic display that integrated with the room's existing hologram. New data points appeared, the locations of dimensional scars that Ben had somehow downloaded during his training session. Whoa, Ben muttered, startled by the device's autonomous action. Gwen approached, studying the enhanced display with evident fascination. The Omnitrix is contributing to our mapping efforts. It must have capabilities we haven't even begun to understand. It's been doing that a lot today, Ben noted. Acting on its own, downloading information, communicating with dimensional anomalies. It's adaptive, Kai observed. Learning and evolving to respond to the specific threat. Ben flexed his wrist, watching as the cosmic Omnitrix's symbols rotated in complex patterns. So what's our next move? I assume the Foundation has a plan beyond just monitoring. Gwen nodded, returning to the main console. We've developed technology that can temporarily stabilize smaller breaches. For larger tiers, we need something more powerful, which is where you and the cosmic Omnitrix come in. We believe, Kai added, that certain transformations will allow you to manipulate dimensional energy directly, potentially sealing breaches permanently or even tracking them back to their source. Like I did in the desert, Ben realized. As cosmic, the celestial Sapien variant. Exactly, Gwen confirmed. But that was a relatively small tear. The breaches are growing larger and more complex. You'll need practice, training in how to use these new forms effectively. Ben absorbed this information, weighing his options. The plumbers would want to be involved. Especially his grandfather. But if what Gwen and Kai said about interdimensional politics was true, involving Earth authorities could complicate an already dangerous situation. I need to tell Grandpa something, he said finally. I can't just disappear into your Foundation's operations without explanation. We anticipated that, Kai replied, retrieving a data crystal from the console. This contains enough information to brief the plumbers without compromising our more sensitive operations. Max Tennyson has sufficient clearance to know the basics. Ben accepted the crystal, tucking it into his pocket. And what about us? You two have been working together for months on this, and now suddenly I'm part of the team because this showed up. He raised his wrist, displaying the cosmic Omnitrix. Gwen's expression softened. Ben, we always knew you'd be involved eventually. The legend specifically mentioned the Omnitrix bearer as key to confronting this threat. We just couldn't approach you until the cosmic Omnitrix manifested. Why not? Ben challenged. Because we didn't want to paint a target on your back, Kai answered bluntly. Whatever is creating these breaches has been systematic, methodical. If it realized the cosmic Omnitrix was destined for you, it might have struck preemptively. Ben considered this, finding the logic sound if frustrating. Fine, so what happens now? Now, Gwen said with a small smile, we start your training. The Foundation has facilities specifically designed for mastering interdimensional abilities. And we need to move quickly, Kai added. Her expression grave as she gestured to the holographic display where new red points had appeared during their conversation. The breaches are accelerating. Based on current progression, we have approximately 2 weeks before a major incursion event. Ben looked between the two women. Gwen, his childhood friend whose magical abilities had evolved beyond what he'd imagined possible, and Kai, the enigmatic archaeologist whose path had crossed his at pivotal moments throughout his life. Both now part of something larger than he'd realized, and both looking to him with expectations he wasn't sure he could fulfill. The cosmic Omnitrix pulsed on his wrist, as if responding to his uncertainty with reassurance. Ben took a deep breath, decision made. All right, he said with renewed determination. Let's get started. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2. Quantum Entanglement. The Horizon Foundation's primary research facility lay hidden beneath an unassuming corporate office building on the outskirts of Bellwood. Unlike the sterile whiteness of plumber bases or the utilitarian design of most government installations, the Foundation's headquarters embraced a fusion of architectural styles, sweeping arches reminiscent of anodite structures alongside angular galvan precision engineering, all bathed in the warm amber lighting preferred by interdimensional travelers, whose eyes often needed time to adjust between realities. Ben followed Gwen through a series of security checkpoints, each more sophisticated than the last. His cousin? No, not his cousin in this reality. He reminded himself. Moved with practiced familiarity, her posture conveying the quiet authority of someone comfortable in their expertise. The years of interdimensional study had changed her in subtle ways. She stood straighter, spoke more deliberately, and carried herself with a serene confidence that reminded Ben of Professor Paradox. The orientation chamber is just ahead, Gwen said, gesturing toward an ornate doorway inscribed with symbols that shifted and realigned as they approached. Fair warning, it can be a bit overwhelming the first time. Ben raised an eyebrow. I've been turned into over 70 different alien species, fought interdimensional conquerors, and once had my consciousness scattered across multiple timelines. Define. Overwhelming. A small smile tugged at Gwen's lips. Still the same Ben. She pressed her palm against the door, which recognized her energy signature and dissolved into particles of light. Some things never change. The chamber beyond defied conventional understanding of interior space. What should have been a room perhaps 30 feet across instead opened into what appeared to be a vast cosmic expanse, stars, nebulae, and swirling dimensional gateways suspended in an endless void. Ben instinctively reached for the cosmic Omnitrix before realizing they weren't actually in space. This was an immersive projection of extraordinary detail. "Welcome to the Nexus Observatory," Gwen said, stepping onto what appeared to be nothing but was clearly a solid surface. "It maps interdimensional connections in real time." Ben cautiously followed, fighting his instinct to brace for the sensation of falling. "This is not standard Earth tech. It's a gift from the Contemplalia," came Kai's voice as she emerged from what appeared to be a swirling galaxy to their right. She wore a form-fitting suit of midnight blue material that Ben didn't recognize, not quite fabric, not quite technology, but something in between. One of the Foundation's benefactors. The Contemplalia. Ben's eyes widened in recognition. The same beings who helped create the universe. One of many universal architects, Kai corrected, approaching them. Multiverse has numerous founding species. The Contemplalia simply took an interest in our particular dimensional cluster. Ben looked up at the cosmic display surrounding them, new understanding dawning. So all of this, the Horizon Foundation, the monitoring of breaches, it's being backed by the Contemplalia. Among others, Gwen confirmed, gesturing upward. The projection shifted, focusing on a specific section of the multiverse where several dimensional planes intersected. What you're seeing is the Concordat Nexus, 17 stable dimensions that have maintained peaceful relations for over 12,000 years by our timeline. The visualization was breathtaking, each dimension represented by a distinct color signature, connected by delicate filaments of energy that pulsed with data and communication. Ben could discern patterns of movement between them, regulated, controlled passages rather than the violent tears he'd witnessed in the desert. "The natural order of interdimensional travel," Kai explained, noting his interest. "Controlled transits through established checkpoints, maintaining the integrity of the dimensional barriers." Ben nodded slowly, processing this information. "And someone's bypassing all that, punching holes directly between dimensions." "Exactly," Gwen confirmed grimly. "Creating unsanctioned breaches that weaken the entire framework." The cosmic Omnitrix suddenly pulsed on Ben's wrist, projecting its own holographic interface that somehow integrated with the chamber's display. New data points appeared, the locations of dimensional scars Ben had somehow downloaded during previous encounters. "It's synchronizing," Kai observed with barely contained excitement. "The Omnitrix is connecting to the Nexus Observatory." Ben watched as the cosmic Omnitrix continued its autonomous interaction with the system, feeding information that caused the display to zoom in on a specific region, a darkened area between dimensional planes where swirling tendrils of void-like energy reached outward. "The void horizon," Gwen identified softly. "The boundary space we've been monitoring." As they watched, a new tier formed in the visualization, a jagged, red wound in reality that connected the void region to what Ben recognized as their dimension. Alarms sounded throughout the chamber, lights shifting to an urgent crimson. "Active breach detected, Anno." Unst a melodious voice from everywhere and nowhere. "Dimensional integrity compromised in Sector 7, North American continent." Kai was already moving, pulling up additional data screens with practiced gestures. "Location locked. Northern Michigan, Copper Harbor region. Uninhabited forestland. Scope." Gwen asked tersely, her hands glowing with magical energy as she established what appeared to be a scrying connection. "Class 3 and expanding," Kai reported. "Signature matches previous scout deployment patterns." Ben stepped forward, studying the visualized breach. "I'm guessing we need to respond to this." "We do," Gwen confirmed, her expression serious. "This is the largest breach yet, and it's occurring in a remote location, perfect for deploying something they don't want detected immediately." The cosmic Omnitrix pulsed again, this time displaying a rotating selection of alien forms that cycled too quickly for Ben to identify individually before settling on one, a silhouette Ben didn't recognize. The Omnitrix is suggesting a transformation, he noted with surprise. It's adaptive, Kai explained, approaching to examine the display. It's analyzing the breach characteristics and recommending the most effective form for this specific threat. Ben studied the unfamiliar silhouette, a slender, almost crystalline figure with multiple appendages that branched like lightning. Any idea what this is? A quantumancer, Gwen identified, her eyes widening slightly. From the 8th dimension. They're natural breach healers, beings that can manipulate quantum probability. Sounds useful, Ben remarked, already activating the transformation sequence. The cosmic Omnitrix's energy engulfed him in a swirl of blue-violet light, the transformation feeling somehow more fluid than usual, less a reconfiguration of matter and more a shift in his fundamental quantum state. When the light faded, Ben found himself in a form unlike any he'd experienced before. His body appeared to be composed of crystalline energy, semi-transparent with fractal patterns that constantly reorganized themselves throughout his structure. Each movement created echoes of potential actions, images that showed what might have happened had he moved slightly differently. Knowledge of this form came to him intuitively. A quantumancer, a being that existed partially outside conventional probability. Paradox. He named himself instinctively, his voice resonating with harmonic overtones that seemed to echo from multiple points in spacetime simultaneously. Remarkable, Kai breathed, circling him with undisguised fascination. A perfect specimen. How do you feel? Gwen asked, her anodite senses clearly perceiving something beyond what was visibly apparent. Connected, Paradox replied, raising hands that left quantum trails through the air. I can see probability lines, potential outcomes, the quantum foam underlying reality. He turned toward the visualization of the breach. And I can see exactly how that tear was created, the frequency used to destabilize the dimensional barrier. Can you close it? Kai asked, already activating what appeared to be a teleportation platform. Paradox nodded, certainty flowing through him. I can do more than that. I can trace it back to its source. Gwen's expression turned cautious. That would be premature. We need to contain this breach first, before attempting any counter-incursion. Agreed, Kai said, completing the teleportation calculations. Platform charged for 3. Arrival point set for 1 kilometer from the breach site. Paradox stepped onto the platform, watching with newfound perception as quantum probabilities shifted around them. You've both done this before. It wasn't a question, but Gwen answered anyway as she joined him. We've responded to 7 minor breaches in the past month. None as large as this one. And none with a quantumancer on our side, Kai added, the last to step onto the platform. She tapped a sequence into her wrist device, initiating quantum fold transport in 3, 2, 1. The teleportation felt nothing like the jarring matter-energy conversion of Plummer technology. Instead, Paradox experienced it as a gentle shift between probability states. One moment they were in the chamber, the next they simply existed elsewhere, as if they had always been there. Igan's dense northern forests surrounded them, ancient pines towering overhead as the afternoon sun filtered through their branches. The air hung heavy with the scent of resin and damp earth, but underlying it was something else, a sharp, electric tang that raised the hairs on human skin. This way, Gwen said, her eyes glowing with anodite energy as she sensed the breach location. Half a mile northwest, Paradox followed, experiencing the forest in ways his human senses never could. Each tree existed as a quantum probability cloud, not just its present state, but echoes of its past and potential futures. Animals froze as they passed, sensing something fundamentally wrong about his existence in their reality. The breach is affecting local wildlife, Kai noted, consulting a handheld scanner. Temporal displacement field extending outward approximately 200 meters from the epicenter. I can feel it, Paradox confirmed, perceiving the distorted probability lines ahead. Time is flowing differently within the affected zone, faster in some pockets, slower in others. They crested a small ridge, and the breach came into view, a jagged tear in reality hovering 8 feet above a small clearing. Unlike the relatively organized dimensional opening Ben had witnessed in the desert, this breach pulsed with angry red energy, its edges ragged and unstable. Space warped visibly around it, light bending in impossible ways as reality itself protested the violation. More concerning were the figures moving beneath it, three humanoid forms that appeared to be setting up equipment around the breach perimeter. Even from a distance, Paradox could perceive the void corruption in their partially transparent bodies. "Void agents," Kai whispered, dropping to a crouch behind the ridgeline. "Advanced scouts. They're stabilizing the breach for something larger to come through." Gwen's hands glowed with prepared spells as she analyzed the situation. "We need to disrupt their equipment first. Then deal with the agents before sealing the breach." Paradox studied the quantum probability lines flowing through the clearing, seeing potential outcomes branch and converge. "I can approach undetected. In this form, I can shift partially out of phase with normal matter." "Be careful," Gwen cautioned. "Those devices they're placing, they're temporal anchors. Designed to stabilize space-time for transit." "I see it," Paradox confirmed, perceiving the energy signatures. "Ready." At their nods, Paradox focused on his quantum state, deliberately shifting his molecular cohesion until he existed partially between probability states, not quite invisible, but existing in a quantum uncertainty that made him difficult for conventional senses to perceive. He moved down the ridge, experiencing the strange sensation of passing through probability fields where time flowed differently. Near one temporal anchor, he felt himself moving as if through thick syrup. Near another, his thoughts raced ahead of his physical form. The void agents showed no sign of detecting him, their attention focused on their equipment. Up close, their corrupted nature became more apparent. Humanoid forms had once been something else entirely, their bodies partially composed of the same void-like substance Ben had witnessed in the corrupted aliens. Their movements were precise but oddly mechanical, as if following programming rather than independent thought. The central device they were assembling appeared to be a dimensional gateway, a more sophisticated version of the equipment Max had once described from his plumber days. Paradox recognized its purpose immediately, not just to stabilize this breach, but to widen it systematically. He reached the first temporal anchor undetected, examining its quantum structure. With careful precision, he manipulated the probability field around it, introducing a quantum uncertainty that would cause the device to fail at a crucial moment. He repeated this process with the second and third anchors, each time introducing a different failure pattern to prevent the agents from identifying a single cause. Task completed, Paradox retreated to a positio N halfway between the breach and his companions, then deliberately shifted back into full phase with normal reality. The effect was immediate. All three void agents snapped to attention, their featureless faces turning toward him with uncanny synchronization. "Interdimensional transit detected," one stated in a voice that sounded like several voices overlapping discordantly. "Quantumancer presence identified. Threat assessment. Maximum." Quote, "I'm flattered," Paradox replied, raising hands that crackled with quantum energy. "But I think you've overstated my capabilities." That was, of course, a deliberate misdirection. As the agents moved to engage him, the first temporal anchor failed exactly as he'd planned, sending a cascade of destabilizing energy through their equipment. The dimensional gateway emitted a high-pitched whine as its calibration faltered. The distraction provided the perfect opening for Gwen and Kai to launch their coordinated attack from the ridgeline. Gwen unleashed a barrage of spell bolts that disrupted the agents' void-infused bodies, while Kai deployed what appeared to be specialized containment grenades that exploded into fields of stabilizing energy. Paradox engaged the nearest agent directly, discovering that his quantumancer form could interact with void energy in ways that neutralized its corruptive effects. Each strike of his crystalline limbs left the agent more solid, more anchored to normal reality. "They're attempting to reactivate the gateway," Kai called, ducking beneath a void energy blast from one of the agents. Paradox glanced toward the central device, where probability lines converged toward a concerning outcome: successful stabilization. He needed to disrupt those lines without destabilizing the breach itself, a delicate quantum manipulation. "Cover me," he called to Gwen, who immediately redirected her magical assault to provide him a clear path. Paradox moved with quantum speed, appearing beside the gateway in what seemed like an instantaneous transition. The agent operating the controls reacted with inhuman reflexes, lashing out with a void tendril that passed through Paradox's partially phased form. With precise movements, Paradox placed his hands on the gateway's control matrix, interfacing directly with its quantum architecture. Information flowed between them, he could perceive the device's operating parameters. Its connection to the void dimension, the coordinates it was attempting to stabilize. More disturbingly, he glimpsed fragments of the intelligence behind it, cold, calculating, ancient beyond comprehension. The sensation lasted only microseconds before Paradox executed his disruption, introducing quantum uncertainty into the gateway's most critical systems. The effect was immediate and catastrophic, for the void agents. The gateway imploded with a silent flash, collapsing into a singularity that lasted mere moments before dissipating. The energy backlash struck the agents, disrupting whatever connection maintained their corrupted state. All three collapsed to the ground, their void components separating from their physical forms like dark smoke being drawn back toward the breach. Chi remained were three unconscious humanoid figures, two appearing to be human, one clearly Petrosapian in origin. They were possessed, Gwen realized, approaching cautiously. The void energy was using them as vessels. Not exactly possessed, Paradox corrected, examining the quantum signatures lingering around them. More like quantum entanglement. Their consciousness was linked to something on the other side, overriding their own will. Kai was already securing the unconscious figures with specialized restraints. The Foundation has encountered this before, but never with such advanced integration. The void entity is evolving its techniques. Paradox turned his attention to the breach itself, which pulsed more erratically now without the stabilizing influence of the gateway. The tear is destabilizing. I need to seal it before it collapses catastrophically. What happens if it collapses on its own? Gwen asked, though her expression suggested she already knew the answer. Dimensional shockwave, Paradox replied grimly. Everything within a mile radius would be subjected to unpredictable space-time distortions. Best case scenario, temporal displacement. Worst case, complete molecular dissolution. Can you close it safely? Kai asked, completing her securing of the former agents. Paradox studied the quantum structure of the breach, perceiving its fundamental frequency. Yes, but I'll need an energy focus. Something to channel and direct the quantum manipulation. Gwen stepped forward without hesitation. My anodite abilities should provide sufficient focus. I've assisted in breach closures before. Paradox nodded, recognizing the compatibility of their abilities. Stand opposite me. When I begin the quantum weaving, channel your mana into stabilizing the edges of the tear. They positioned themselves on either side of the breach, which now hovered just above head height, its crimson energy fluctuating wildly. Paradox raised his hands, crystalline phi. Nerves spreading as he began manipulating the quantum probabilities surrounding the tear. The process required incredible precision. Each probability line needed to be reoriented, each quantum uncertainty. NTY resolved in a specific sequence to gradually reduce the breach's dimensional footprint. Gwen's mana energy flowed into the breach edges, providing the stability necessary for Paradox's more delicate manipulations. As they worked in concert, the breach slowly contracted, its angry red energy gradually shifting toward a more stable violet hue. Paradox could perceive the connection to the void dimension weakening. The quantum entanglement threads becoming more distinct and therefore more manageable. What he hadn't anticipated was the breach's final defensive measure. As they reduced it to roughly 1/3 its original size, the tear suddenly pulsed with renewed energy, a last desperate attempt by whatever controlled it to maintain the connection. A tendril of pure void energy lashed out directly at Paradox, moving faster than even his quantum-enhanced perceptions could track. It struck him squarely in the chest, sending him staggering backward as void energy attempted to corrupt his quantumancer form. Ben! Gwen cried out, momentarily distracted from her stabilization efforts. The breach expanded suddenly, threatening to undo their progress. Kai moved with trained reflexes, deploying the last of her containment grenades to temporarily slow the expansion. Paradox fought an internal battle against the void corruption, using his quantumancer abilities to isolate and neutralize the invasive energy. Unlike physical beings, his quantum-based form had natural resistance to corruption, but the attack had been precisely targeted at his dimensional frequency. I'm fine, he managed, regaining his footing. But we need to finish this now, before it attempts another attack. Gwen redoubled her efforts, drawing deeper on her anodite heritage. Her human appearance flickered momentarily, revealing glimpses of her energy being underneath, a testament to how much power she was channeling. Paradox rejoined the effort, working with renewed urgency. This time, he approached the breach closure differently. Rather than a gradual contraction, he identified the breach's quantum keystone, the fundamental pattern that maintained its connection to the void dimension. With surgical precision, he severed those connections while simultaneously weaving a quantum seal using the breach's own energy. The tier resisted, pulsing with desperate intensity, but the combined efforts of quantumancer precision and anodite power proved insurmountable. The breach collapsed with a thunderclap of displaced air, dimensional energies flowing back to their proper places as reality reasserted itself. The forest fell suddenly, eerily silent in the aftermath, even the birds and insects temporarily stunned by the interdimensional disturbance. Paradox dropped to one knee, the exertion of complex quantum manipulation taking its toll. The cosmic Omnitrix symbol on his chest beeped a warning, indicating the transformation was nearing its time limit. That was intense, he admitted as Gwen approached, concern evident in her expression. "Are you all right?" she asked, kneeling beside him. "That void tendril was aiming directly for your Omnitrix symbol." Paradox nodded slowly, a meaning the quantum echoes still visible to his enhanced perception. It wasn't random. It recognized the cosmic Omnitrix as a threat and targeted it specifically. "Which confirms our theory," Kai said, approaching after checking their unconscious captives. "Whatever is creating these breaches knows about the cosmic Omnitrix and sees it as a direct obstacle to its plans." The Omnitrix timed out with a familiar beep, energy spiraling around Paradox as he reverted to human form. Ben remained kneeling in the forest clearing, catching his breath as the incredible sensory input of the quantumancer faded from his awareness. "That was something else," he managed, looking up at Gwen. "I could see everything. All possibilities, all outcomes, the underlying structure of reality itself." Gwen helped him to his feet, her hand lingering on his arm slightly longer than strictly necessary. The quantumancer species is legendary even among interdimensional beings. Their perceptions exist partially outside normal space-time, which makes them perfect for dealing with breaches, Kai added, already contacting the Foundation for extraction. "But the void energy targeting the Omnitrix is concerning. It suggests whoever is behind this already knows about you, Ben." Ben dusted himself off, glancing at the sealed breach point where faint energy traces still lingered. "I got a glimpse of something when I interfaced with their gateway. Not just information, intelligence. Something ancient, calculating, patient." Gwen and Kai exchanged significant looks before Gwen spoke. "The Void Architect. You've encountered it before?" Ben asked. "Not directly," Kai replied, her expression grim. "Only echoes, fragments in ancient texts and interdimensional records. A being that exists within the void horizon, studying dimensional boundaries for eons. The Foundation believes it's been planning this incursion for thousands of years," Gwen added. "Methodically testing dimensional barriers, learning their weaknesses, developing techniques to corrupt and convert other beings." Ben processed this information, the weight of the situation settling over him. "And now it's making its move, starting with our dimension." "Starting with Earth specifically," Kai corrected. "All major breaches have targeted this planet, despite thousands of inhabited worlds in our dimension." "But why Earth?" Ben wondered. "The Omnitrix," Gwen answered simply. "Both versions have left quantum signatures throughout Earth's dimensional boundary, thousands of alien transformations, reality alterations, time travel events. Our dimensional barrier is already more permeable than most because of your adventures over the years." Ben winced slightly. "So what you're saying is, I accidentally made Earth the RFECT target for interdimensional invasion." "Not just you," Kai clarified. "Earth has been a nexus for unusual dimensional activity for centuries. The plumbers, various alien visitors, magical practitioners like Gwen, all have contributed to creating a unique dimensional signature. And now we need to defend it," Gwen said with quiet determination. The sound of an approaching aircraft drew their attention skyward, where a sleek, dark vessel with the Horizon Foundation logo was descending toward the clearing. Its design reminded Ben of the Rust Bucket 3, but with technology clearly beyond standard Earth engineering. "Extraction team is here," Kai noted unnecessarily. "They'll secure the former agents for rehabilitation and study." Ben studied the unconscious figures who had been Void agents minutes earlier. "Can they be helped? Restored to normal?" We've had limited success with previous cases, Gwen answered, her expression softening at Ben's concern. The Foundation has developed head purification techniques that can remove most void corruption, though the psychological trauma often remains. The aircraft landed with barely a whisper of sound, its boarding ramp extending to reveal a team of Foundation operatives in the same midnight blue uniforms Kai wore. They moved with military precision to secure the area and retrieve the unconscious figures. We should return to headquarters, Kai suggested, already moving toward the aircraft. The data we collected needs to be analyzed immediately. This breach was significantly larger than previous incursions. Ben nodded, following her lead while processing everything he'd experienced. The Quantumancer form had shown him glimpses of a larger conflict, probability lines extending outward from this moment, branching into NTIAL futures both promising and catastrophic. You're quiet, Gwen observed as they boarded the aircraft, taking seats across from each other in what appeared to be a tactical briefing area. Just thinking, Ben replied, watching the forest disappear beneath them as the aircraft ascended. The Quantumancer form showed me things, potential outcomes, probability lines. Most of them weren't great. Gwen's expression grew serious. Interdimensional beings often have limited precognitive abilities. What did you see? Ben struggled to articulate the complex quantum visions. It wasn't clear, more like patterns of possibility. But there was definitely a convergence point in the near future, a moment where countless probability lines intersected. He met her gaze directly. Something big is coming, Gwen. Something that changes everything. The cosmic Omnitrix appeared for a reason, she reminded him gently. Whatever's coming, you're equipped to face it. We're equipped, Ben corrected, including Kai with a glance. I'm getting the distinct impression this isn't something I can punch my way through alone, no matter how many new alien forms I have access to. Kai looked up from data analysis with a hint of approval in her expression. That's surprisingly mature of you, Tennyson. I have my moments, Ben replied with a half-smile that faded quickly. So what's our next move? Training, Gwen answered decisively. You need to master at least the core transformations the cosmic Omnitrix has prioritized. And we need to understand more about how it purifies void corruption. The Foundation has prepared a specialized training facility, Kai added, designed specifically for interdimensional abilities. Ben nodded, accepting the necessity even as he chafed at the delay. Action had always been his preferred response to threats. How long do we have before the next breach? Based on the escalating pattern, Kai said, consulting her data, approximately 36 hours. Each incursion has been 22% larger than the previous one, with intervals decreasing logarithmically. Then we'd better make the most of those 36 hours, Ben replied, studying He cosmic Omnitrix on his wrist with renewed determination. The Foundation's training facility resembled a cross between a high-tech gymnasium and an interdimensional laboratory. Various stations were equipped with specialized sensors and equipment designed to measure and challenge different aspects of alien abilities. Several Foundation scientists monitored the proceedings from a control room overlooking the main floor. Ben stood in the center of a circular platform, the cosmic Omnitrix displaying its holographic interface as Gwen explained the training protocol. We'll focus on 5 key transformations initially, she said, manipulating a control panel that synchronized with the Omnitrix display. Each one has specific applications for dealing with dimensional threats. Quantumancer for breach sealing, Ben noted, recognizing the first silhouette she highlighted. What are the others? Gwen indicated each form in turn. Luminous, the light being you discovered earlier, Perf. ECT for detecting dimensional anomalies and energy signatures. Gravitron, a Galilean variant with enhanced gravity manipulation. Chronoshift, a specialized chronosapian form. And Nexus, a unique transformation that appears to function as a dimensional anchor point. Ben studied each silhouette with interest. Any idea why the cosmic Omnitrix selected these specific forms as priorities? We believe they represent a balanced approach to interdimensional threats, Kai answered as she entered the training area, now dressed in more practical attire suitable for physical activity. Detection, manipulation, stabilization, temporal control, and quantum adjustment. A complete toolkit, Ben summarized with a nod. So where do we start? With something you haven't tried yet, Gwen suggested, highlighting the gravitron silhouette. Gravity manipulation will be crucial for controlling breach expansion. Ben activated the selection, the cosmic Omnitrix responding instantly. The transformati on enveloped him in the now familiar blue-violet energy, reshaping his molecular structure. When the light faded, Ben found himself in a form resembling Gravitac, but with significant differences. His body was still composed of living stone with a planetary core, but the rock was darker, threaded with luminescent veins of cosmic energy. Multiple floating fragments orbited his central mass, connected by gravitational fields he could perceive and manipulate. Most notably, his consciousness felt expanded, aware of gravitational forces throughout the training facility and beyond. Gravitron, he named himself. Voice deeper and resonating with power. Remarkable, observed one of the scientists over the observation room speakers. A perfect Galilean specimen with enhanced dimensional awareness. Kai approached with scanning equipment, circling Gravitron with professional interest. How's your gravitational perception? Incredible, Gravitron replied, raising a hand experimentally. He could feel the gravitational fields around him like invisible webs that connected all matter. With minimal effort, he adjusted the local gravity, causing several training dummies to float gently upward. I can perceive gravity wells extending outward for miles, at least. Try focusing on dimensional boundaries, Gwen suggested, her anodite senses perceiving energies beyond normal sight. Gravity behaves differently at junction points between realities. Gravitron concentrated, extending his awareness outward. To his surprise, he could indeed perceive subtle distortions in the gravitatio. Null field, places where reality itself seemed to fold slightly, creating microscopic variations in how gravity propagated. I can feel them, he confirmed with wonder. Like wrinkles in space-time. Some are natural, part of the dimensional boundary. Others feel artificial, recent. Those are the sealed breach points we've been monitoring, Kai explained, recording his observations. Even closed, they leave gravitational echoes. Now try active manipulation, Gwen directed, activating a training sequence. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the training area, a realistic emulation of a dimensional breach approximately 10 feet across, pulsing with the same angry red energy they'd encountered in Michigan. Around it, simulated void energy began to spread outward. Create a gravity containment field, Kai instructed. Imagine compressing the breach from all sides equally. Gravitron raised both hands, focusing on the simulated breach. He could perceive its gravitat-ional signature, a distortion that pulled and pushed simultaneously, creating chaotic fluctuations in the surrounding space-time. With careful precision, he began manipulating those fields, creating a spherical compression zone around the breach. The effect was immediate. The simulated tier contracted, its wild energy fluctuations stabilizing under the uniform gravitational pressure. Gravitron maintained the field, finding it required constant adjustments as the breach attempted to destabilize in unpredictable ways. Excellent, Gwen commended, monitoring the energy readings. Now try something more complex. Breach points often develop gravitational eddies, pockets where gravity reverses or intensifies unpredictably. The simulation obliged, generating swirling anomalies around the contained breach, areas where gravity suddenly increased tenfold or reversed direction entirely. Maintaining the primary containment field while simultaneously neutralizing these eddies required split attention and precise control. Gravitron found himself developing new techniques on the fly, creating counter-rotating gravitational fields that canceled out the anomalies while reinforcing the main containment. The process was mentally taxing but deeply satisfying, like solving a complex physics equation with his mind and body simultaneously. He's adapting quickly, one scientist noted with evident approval, developing techniques that took our previous gravity manipulators weeks to master. The cosmic Omnitrix appears to provide intuitive understanding of each form's capabilities, Kai observed, continuing her scans. Ben isn't just transforming physically, he's gaining experiential knowledge. Gwen increased the simulation's difficulty, introducing multiple breach points that interacted gravitationally. Gravitron responded by creating a complex web of interconnected fields, using the orbital fragments of his body as focal points for more precise manipulations. After 20 minutes of increasingly challenging exercises, Gwen finally ended the simulation. That's enough for Gravitron. We should move on to the next form while you still have energy reserves. The cosmic Omnitrix timed out on command, returning Ben to human form. He took a moment to readjust to his normal perceptions, the sudden absence of gravitational awareness leaving him momentarily disoriented. That was intense, he admitted. Accepting a water bottle from Kai. Like having an extra sense suddenly activated at full volume. You performed exceptionally well, she noted, reviewing the data collected. Your intuitive adaptation exceeds our projections. What's next? Ben asked after hydrating, already eager to continue despite the mental exertion. Chronoshift, Gwen decided, highlighting the Chronosapian variant on the display. Temporal manipulation will be crucial for counteracting the time distortions we've observed near larger breaches. Ben activated the transformation, experiencing He now familiar energy cascade as his molecular structure reorganized. This form felt fundamentally different from any previous transformation. His consciousness seemed to expand not just in space but in time. Perception extending both forward and backward along his own timeline. When the transformation completed, Ben found himself in a form resembling clockwork, but significantly modified. His body was still mechanical in nature, but composed of a golden-violet alloy that shifted and flowed like liquid metal while maintaining definite form. The key-like winding mechanism on his head was CED by an elaborate cosmic gear system that rotated independently of his movements. Most strikingly, temporal energy visibly flowed through transparent sections of his body, creating the impression of time itself circulating through his form. Chronoshift, he named himself, voice resonating with temporal harmonics that created slight echoes before and after each word. Extraordinary, breathed one of the scientists. A fully evolved Chronosapian with enhanced temporal field generation. Gwen approached cautiously, her anodite senses clearly perceiving something beyond the visible changes. How do you feel, Ben? Disconnected from normal time flow, Chronoshift replied, observing the subtle time distortions around every moving object in the room. I can see temporal trails behind Young, where you were moments ago, and probability shimmers ahead, where you're likely to move next. Can you focus on a specific temporal point? Kai asked, activating a different simulation program. A holographic timeline appeared before them, a visualization of the Michigan breach they'd sealed hours earlier. The simulation showed the breach's development from initial formation through expansion to their intervention and sealing. Try to isolate the exact moment the breach first formed, Gwen instructed. Temporal precision will be crucial for tracking breach origins. Chronoshift focused on the simulation, his perception expanding to encompass the entire temporal sequence. Unlike Clockwork's more limited abilities to slow or accelerate time, Chronoshift could perceive temporal layers with extraordinary precision, seeing not just what happened, but the causal connections between events. He identified the breach's origin point, a microscopic temporal distortion that preceded the visible tear by 3.72 seconds. More importantly, he could perceive the dimensional frequency that had initiated the distortion, like a unique signature embedded in the fabric of time itself. There, he indicated, freezing the simulation at the precise moment. But there's more, I can see the dimensional frequency that created it. Like a temporal fingerprint, Kai's eyes widened with interest. Can you replicate that frequency? Chronoshift considered the question, examining his own capabilities. I believe so, but it would be dangerous. Replicating the frequency might create a sympathetic resonance with the original breach point. That's exactly what we need, Gwen explained. Not now, but eventually. The ability to create controlled counter-frequencies could help us trace breaches back to their source dimension. The training continued with increasingly complex temporal exercises, isolating specific moments in simulated breach events, identifying pattern similarities between different breaches, and practicing precise temporal manipulation to counteract distortion effects. Throughout these exercises, Ben noticed something interesting about Gwen's approach to training. Unlike the regimented plumber protocols or the often chaotic improvisations of his teenage years, Gwen structured the training as a scientific exploration, encouraging experimentation, adaptation, and theoretical understanding alongside practical application. You've become quite the professor, Chronoshift observed during a brief pause between exercises. Very different from our figure it out while aliens are shooting at us days. A small smile touched Gwen's lips. Interdimensional study requires precision. Grandma Verdona's training was intense. 3 years in dimensions where time flows different. Lee gave me plenty of opportunity to develop teaching methods. It suits you, Chronoshift said sincerely. The confident expertise, the patient explanation. I'm impressed. Something flickered in Gwen's expression. Surprise, perhaps. Or pleasure at the genuine compliment. Before she could respond, Kai returned with updated simulation parameters. Let's try something more challenging, she suggested, activating a new program. Multiple temporal distortions with varying frequencies, simulating a Class 4 breach scenario. The training resumed with increased intensity, Chronoshift developing N.E.U. techniques for managing complex temporal distortions. By the time the cosmic Omnitrix timed out, returning Ben to human form, 3 hours had passed. That's enough for today, Gwen decided, noting Ben's evident fatigue despite his attempts to hide it. Multiple transformations with the cosmic variants require significantly more energy than standard forms. Ben nodded, accepting the limitation despite his desire to continue. What's next on the agenda? Food, Kai stated definitively, already heading for the exit. Then we review the data and prepare for tomorrow's session. The Foundation has excellent dining facilities. Gwen added, falling into step beside Ben as they followed Kai. One advantage of interdimensional benefactors, cuisine from across the multiverse. Ben's stomach rumbled appreciatively at the prospect. Now you're speaking my language. The Foundation's dining hall defied conventional restaurant categories, featuring food stations representing culinary traditions from multiple dimensions. The space itself was designed with comfortable acoustic properties, busy enough to feel energetic yet allowing for private conversation without straining to hear. Ben sat across from Gwen at a small table near a window overlooking Bellwood's skyline, the city lights beginning to illuminate as evening descended. Between them, plates showcased an eclectic select ion of interdimensional cuisine, some recognizable, others fascinatingly alien in appearance and aroma. Try the blue spiral thing, Gwen suggested, indicating a dish resembling pasta but with unusual coloration. It's from the Contimelia home dimension, tastes like the perfect combination of Italian and Thai flavors. Ben took a cautious bite, his expression shifting to pleasant surprise as the flavors developed across his palate. Okay, that's amazing. How is this not marketed commercially? Incompatible with Earth agricultural practices, Gwen explained with a smile. It requires soil wit, trace elements that don't naturally occur in our dimension. Ben sampled another dish, this one appearing similar to sushi but glowing faintly with bioluminescent properties. So, are you going to tell me how you really got involved with the Foundation? Interdimensional studies with Grandma Verdona seems like the simplified version. Gwen considered him thoughtfully before answering. You deserve the full story. She set down her utensils, expression growing more serious. 3 years ago, I began experiencing episodes. Moments where I could perceive other dimensions bleeding through into ours. At first, I thought it was just my anodite abilities developing, but the visions became more frequent, more disturbing. Why didn't you tell me? Ben asked, concern evident in his voice. You were dealing with the Incursine invasion in the Andromeda Galaxy, Gwen reminded him. By the time you returned, Grandma Verdona had already appeared with an explanation. The dimensional barriers were thinning. And my anodite heritage made me sensitive to the changes. She paused, taking a sip of water before continuing. She offered to train me in a dimension where anodites had developed specific techniques for interdimensional perception and manipulation. What was 3 years for me was only about 8 months in Earth time. And when you returned, Ben prompted gently, the Horizon Foundation had already identified me as a person of interest. They approached with evidence of the same dimensional anomalies I'd been trained to perceive. Gwen's expression softened with remembered relief. Finding an organization that understood what I was experiencing, that had resources dedicated to addressing it, it was exactly what I needed. Ben reached across the table, briefly covering her hand with his own. I wish I'd been here for you. The simple gesture and sincere words clearly affected Gwen, who turned her hand to briefly squeeze his before withdrawing. You're here now, when it matters most. A comfortable silence fell between them as they continued eating, years of friendship allowing for unspoken understanding. Ben found himself studying Gwen with new appreciation. The confident woman she'd become during their time apart, the quiet strength she carried, the depth of knowledge behind her emerald eyes. "What?" Gwen asked, noticing his contemplative observation. "Just thinking about how much we've both changed," Ben replied honestly. "I was chasing aliens across the galaxy while you were learning to navigate dimensions. Different paths, but somehow we've ended up working together again. Some things are constant across all dimensions," Gwen said with a small smile. "In every timeline I glimpsed during my training, Ben and Gwen Tennyson were connected somehow, friends, partners, family." She hesitated almost imperceptibly, sometimes more. The implication hung in the air between them, neither acknowledging it directly but both aware of its presence. In this timeline, they had grown up as close friends rather than cousins, a subtle but significant difference that changed certain possibilities. Ben was saved from formulating a response by Kai's arrival at their table. Data pad in hand and expression serious. "We have a problem," she announced without preamble, sliding into the seat beside Gwen. "Analysis of the Michigan breach data shows an acceleration in the degradation pattern. The next incursion will occur sooner than projected, within 18 hours rather than 36. Location?" Gwen asked immediately, all personal matters set aside. "That's the other problem," Kai replied grimly. "We can't pinpoint it precisely because the dimensional frequency is fluctuating across multiple potential breach points simultaneously, as if testing our defenses. Looking for the path of least resistance." Ben set down his fork, appetite forgotten. "Can we establish a perimeter around all potential locations?" Kai shook her head. Many possibilities spread across too wide an area. We're talking about a 50-mile radius with over 30 potential breach points. Then we need a way to detect the breach the moment it forms," Ben concluded. "Before it can fully stabilize." "Exactly," Kai confirmed, "which is why we need to accelerate your training with the luminous form. Its perceptual abilities are our best chance for early detection." "I'll need to contact Grandpa Max," Ben noted. "The plumbers should be on standby, even if they can't be directly involved with the Foundation's operations." Gwen nodded in agreement. "We should coordinate resources without revealing classified information. The plumbers can handle evacuation protocols if necessary. I've prepared a briefing packet with appropriate redactions," Kai said, retrieving a data crystal similar to the one she'd given Ben earlier. "This will provide sufficient information for plumber preparation without compromising the Foundation's more sensitive operations." Ben accepted the crystal, tucking it into his pocket. "I'll deliver this personally after we finish dinner. There's one more thing," Kai added, her expression growing more serious. E-energy signature from the Michigan breach contained embedded data, what appears to be a message, though our systems are still decrypting it." "A message?" Gwen repeated with evident concern. "From the Void Architect." "We believe so," Kai confirmed. "Preliminary decryption suggests it's specifically addressed to the bearer of the cosmic Omnitrix." Both women turned to Ben, whose expression hardened with determination. "Looks like I've been officially noticed." "This changes our approach," Gwen said thoughtfully. "If the Void Architect is aware of you specifically, it may adjust its strategies accordingly. Or it might be trying to communicate," Ben suggested. "Maybe we should listen to what it has to say before assuming the worst." Kai's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's unexpectedly diplomatic of you, Tennyson." "I've learned that not every alien or interdimensional being has hostile intentions," Ben replied with a shrug. "Sometimes they're just trying to achieve their goals through means we don't understand initially." "A fair point," Gwen conceded. "But the void corruption we've observed suggests methods incompatible with peaceful coexistence." "Agreed," Ben said, "but understanding its motivations might help us counter its strategies more effectively." Kai made a note on her data pad. "I'll prioritize the decryption. We should have results by morning." Conversation shifted to tactical planning for the potential breach locations, the three of them falling into a natural rhythm of collaborative problem solving. Ben contributed his experience with crisis response. Gwen offered magical detection possibilities, and Kai provided the Foundation's specialized resources and protocols. Throughout the discussion, Ben found himself increasingly aware of the dynamics between them, the professional respect, the easy communication, the subtle ways they had already begun functioning as a cohesive team despite their varied backgrounds and approaches. More personally, he noticed the lingering glances Gwen occasionally sent his way when she thought he wasn't looking, and the evaluating observation from Kai that seemed to measure him against some internal standard. Something had shifted in their relationships, subtly but undeniably, the shared danger, the cosmic circumstances, the forced proximity all contributing to an evolving dynamic. As the evening progressed and their planning concluded, Ben rose to deliver the data crystal to Plumber headquarters. "I should get this to Grandpa Max. Will you be continuing training tonight?" "Not formally," Gwen replied. "But I'd like to run some additional analysis on your chronoshift capabilities. The temporal fingerprinting technique could be crucial for tracking breach origins. And I need to check on the decryption progress," Kai added. "Already gathering her materials. We'll reconvene at 0700 tomorrow to continue luminous training." Ben nodded, suddenly reluctant to leave despite the important task ahead. "I'll be back as soon as I've briefed the plumbers. Save some of that blue spiral pasta thing for me." Gwen smiled warmly. "I make no promises. Interdimensional cuisine disappears fast around here." As Ben headed for the exit, he glanced back to see the two women already deep in technical discussion, their expressions animated with shared purpose and intellectual engagement. Despite the looming threat, he felt a surge of confidence. With allies like these, even interdimensional invasion seemed potentially manageable. The cosmic Omnitrix pulsed softly on his wrist, as if agreeing with the sentiment. Plumber headquarters maintained its efficient operation regardless of the hour, personnel moving purposefully through the underground complex as Ben made his way to the command center. Several agents nodded respectfully as he passed. His reputation had only grown in recent years as his experience and maturity had tempered his youthful impulsiveness into reliable leadership. He found Max Tennyson in his office, reviewing reports with Rook. Both looked up as Ben entered, their expressions shifting to alert interest at his unexpected arrival. "Ben," Max greeted him warmly but with evident concern. "I was beginning to wonder if you'd been recruited permanently by the Horizon Foundation." "Not permanently," Ben replied with a small smile, "but definitely intensively." He produced the data crystal, placing it on Max's desk. "This contains information about an imminent interdimensional threat. The Foundation has authorized sharing this much with the plumbers to coordinate defensive preparations." Max picked up the crystal, examining it briefly before inserting it into his secure terminal. Data immediately populated the holographic display, detailed information about dimensional breaches, potential locations for the next incursion, and recommended plumber response protocols. "This is comprehensive," Max noted with surprise. "More than I expected them to share." "The situation is escalating faster than anticipated," Ben explained, taking a seat across from his grandfather. "The next breach is expected within 18 hours, potentially larger than anything we've encountered so far." Rook studied the data with his characteristic thoroughness. "These energy signatures match anomalous readings our sensors detected in Michigan approximately 7 hours ago." "Was the Foundation involved in containing that incident?" "Yes," Ben confirmed, seeing no reason to hide that much. "We sealed a significant breach and captured 3 individuals who had been corrupted by energies from the other side." "We?" Max questioned pointedly. "Myself, Gwen, and Kai Green," Ben clarified, anticipating the follow-up questions. "Gwen's been working with the Foundation for 6 months, specializing in interdimensional energy detection and manipulation." "And the cosmic Omnitrix?" Max inquired, gesturing to the device on Ben's wrist. Ben extended his arm, allowing both Max and Rook to examine the transformed device more closely. It appeared in response to the dimensional threat, specifically designed to counter void corruption and seal breaches between realities. "Fascinating," Rook murmured, scanning the device with his proto-tool. "The energy signature is unlike anything in plumber records. The Foundation believes it was created by Azimuth as a contingency for exactly this type of interdimensional crisis," Ben explained. "It provides access to specialized alien forms with capabilities specifically suited to dimensional manipulation and defense." Max leaned back in his chair, processing this information with the measured consideration of an experienced commander. "What exactly does the Foundation want from the plumbers?" "Backup and containment support," Ben answered promptly. "They'll handle the technical aspects of breach sealing and void entity neutralization, but they need plumber resources for evacuation protocols, perimeter security, and possible casualty management if things go sideways. Reasonable, Max acknowledged, but I want plumber observers included in all field operations involving potential breaches. We need first-hand information about what we're dealing with, not just filtered intelligence. Ben had anticipated this request. The Foundation has agreed to plumber observers, provided they follow Foundadio N protocols regarding interdimensional entities. Some of these beings are sensitive to certain energy signatures that standard plumber equipment might emit. Acceptable terms, Max decided after brief consideration. Rook will coordinate with your Foundation contacts to establish communication protocols and resource allocation. Rook nodded his agreement, already making notes on his data pad. Quote, I will prepare appropriate observation teams with modified equipment to comply with Foundation requirements. Thanks, Grandpa, Ben said sincerely. I know this isn't the standard operational approach you prefer. Max's expression softened slightly. Working with secretive organizations with their own agendas. Actually, that's more standard in plumber operations than you might think. His eyes studied Ben with grandfatherly concern beneath the professional exterior. How are you handling all this, Ben? New Omnitrix, interdimensional threats, reuniting with both Gwen and Kai under crisis conditions. Ben appreciated the personal question amid the tactical planning. It's been intense. The new transformations are incredible but disorienting. They perceive reality in ways my human brain struggles to process afterward. And working with Gwen and Kai, he paused, searching for the right words. It's complicated, but in a good way. We make an effective team. Max's eyes held a knowing look that suggested he perceived more than Ben had stated explicitly. Just remember that crisis situations can intensify emotions and connections. Be careful about decisions made under that kind of pressure. Noted, Ben replied, feeling a flush of embarrassment at his grandfather's gentle warning. Max had always been perceptive about personal dynamics, particularly where his grandchildren were concerned. Rook, either missing or politely ignoring the subtext, focused on practical matters. Will you be returning to the Foundation facility tonight? Yes, Ben confirmed, rising from his seat. We're accelerating training with a specific transformation that can detect breaches in their earliest formation stages. Keep us updated, Max instructed, also standing. And Ben, be careful. Interdimensional entities play by different rules than what we're accustomed to handling. I will, Ben promised, heading for the door. Expect communication from Foundation representatives within the hour to coordinate deployment plans. As he left Plumber headquarters, Ben reflected on the rapidly evolving situation. In less than 24 hours, his life had transformed as dramatically as any alien shift. New Omnitrix, new allies, new enemies, new dimensions of both threat and possibility opening before him. The cosmic Omnitrix pulsed softly on his wrist, its blue-violet light illuminate his path as he headed back toward the Foundation facility and whatever awaited him there. Chapter 2 End. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.